school children around the world have missed classes to stage street protests against climate change. The first rallies in Australia and New Zealand yesterday drew tens of thousands of people. In Europe, students have packed streets and public squares, holding banners demanding that politicians take action to slow global warming.
This worldwide student strike movement started back in August of 2018 when the 16-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg began protesting outside her parliament on school days. Joining us now are the Sydney strike organisers, Ambrose and Jean Hinchliffe. Thanks so much for being here. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Jean, you actually kicked this off essentially, didn't you? What?
In Sydney, at least.
In Sydney, yes.
Yeah, so
how?
What happened is a friend of mine sent me a link to the page about the school strike. There was a post on Facebook, and at this stage there was an event in Melbourne planned, and it was very new and an absolutely insane idea, and I immediately emailed and said that I'd love to do one in Sydney. And this was 11:30 p.m. at night and not very well thought through. But it worked out amazingly, and I'm so happy that I got involved.
It's obviously really growing. Ambrose, how did you become involved?
I became involved last December. I'm not sure exactly how I became involved. I kind of just stumbled upon the group and somehow joined into the organising team.
And you were talking about the fact that obviously you don't have a budget to be able to promote this on social media or something, so you resorted to old-fashioned posters and stuck them up in train stations where there are local schools?
Yeah, we found that posters were actually really helpful. We would particularly target train stations where we knew school children would be going past and around schools themselves, as well as doing lots of chalk messages. But along with that, social media really was helpful. And not even just our own page when it garnered more followers. A lot of it was actually kids posting onto their personal, like Instagrams, for example. They'd post on their story and all their friends would see, and then they'd share on their own, and it created this sort of ripple effect. And it actually worked out really well, and it felt like a really nice, organic and natural growth that actually got us a lot of numbers.
Yeah, well, there were so many people that turned out in Australia yesterday. Were you surprised by how many people came to attend these rallies?
Oh, absolutely. It was just like last year. We were expecting maybe 1,500 last year. We got 7,000. This year we thought if we did well we might get 10,000, and we got 30,000. And even across Australia we got 150,000 people striking, which was... It was mind-blowing. It was absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm. Ambrose, you've heard some, both of you, I'm sure, have heard some conservative Australians say, look, these are just bludger kids trying to take time off school, listen to their music with their long hair. You don't even have long hair, Ambrose, so I don't know what they're talking about there. But how do you feel about the criticism that this shouldn't be happening on a school day? You should do it on a weekend?
Well, we have had rallies on the weekend. For example, last year, December 8th, we had March for Our Future at Town Hall Square. And that had many people who showed up, but it didn't make as much of an impact on the politicians than an event such as yesterday, which had 30,000 people show up. We marched down through the city, had people who were working and walking around. They stopped, watched, took photos and shared it all around. And overall, workers, they don't go on strike when they're not working. So why should students go on strike if they're not at school?
Jean, what is the key message that you want to send politicians in Australia?
Well, we have three major goals as a movement. Our first is to stop Adani. Our second is for no new sources of fossil fuels to be approved. And our final one is for Australia to convert to full renewable energy by 2030. So all of these goals are totally achievable, but what we're lacking is political will. So that's why we're pushing these messages so hard.
Do you think the politicians are listening to you? As Ambrose said, the weekday protest seems to get a bigger response. Are politicians tuning into your message?
I think they're being forced to. I think they'd like to ignore us, but you can't ignore 150,000 people. We're all taking to the streets and we're all taking such drastic action that you just can't ignore us at this stage.
Do you have any faith in the political system to be able to deliver on big changes like this? I think a lot of Australian voters feel a little bit weary after what's happened over the past 10 years or so, with so many different prime ministers coming and going and Parliament seeming so ineffectual at grappling with these big issues that are going to be with us for the next century or more. Are you optimistic?
I think it's difficult because I will say we're not going on a great streak at the moment, but I believe that as people, we have power, and I feel that if we vote for politicians who really do have strong and genuine climate policies in particular, I think it is very possible for us to make change.
What do you think, Ambrose? I mean, you are the future voters in Australia.
Future voters, future prime ministers.
Possibly, yeah, absolutely.
I feel that it's optimistic because people, we all have power, and if we all join up, they can't ignore the public. And even though we can't vote yet, we will be able to. We can't yet. We hopefully will be able to get a lot better in Parliament.
We saw some of the signs yesterday. What were some of the signs that stood out to you of people yesterday?
Oh, I'm trying to think through them now. Oh, there's so many. I think the ones that I really liked were when I would see particularly younger kids who were like 7 or 8 who clearly made their own, and I saw some that I took photos of, and they're all talking about like, this is my world, this is our future. And it was just so great seeing all the effort they put into them. It was so cute as well, but also seeing that they clearly understood what this was about. They clearly made it themselves, and it sort of made a statement again when people try and say that younger people in particular can't have opinions surrounding climate change, seeing that even really young kids know the science at this stage.
Jean and Ambrose, thanks so much for being here. Congratulations. Good to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
You got it.